Welcome to Biden Brief. The content of the briefing includes Border Patrol's acting deputy chief suspended for alleged misconduct. Warnings over Israel's plans for Rafah come from all corners. New York congressional map would make modest tweaks to swing House seats. Remember the Biden bribe allegation? DOJ now says it was made up. The U.S. conducted a cyber attack against an Iranian military ship, an official says. Border Patrol's acting deputy chief suspended for alleged misconduct. Washington Post. The acting deputy chief of the U.S. Border Patrol, Joel Martinez, has been suspended on misconduct allegations. Martinez, a 31-year veteran of the Border Patrol, was named the second-ranking official in January. The specific details of the alleged wrongdoing were not provided, but CBP officials stated that Martinez was not under arrest. The agency stated that it does not tolerate misconduct, and that any allegations are immediately referred for investigation. Martinez was previously the chief of the Laredo sector, and has held leadership positions in other sectors. The Border Patrol is one of the two main branches of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Warnings over Israel's plans for Rafah come from all corners. New York Times. There is international concern over Israel's plans to launch a ground offensive in Rafah, a city in southern Gaza. Over half of Gaza's population is currently sheltering in Rafah, and human rights groups are warning that an evacuation of such scale would be difficult to carry out in compliance with international law. The offensive would also have disastrous consequences on the entire enclave, as Rafah is the primary portal for aid to Gaza. The U.S. has urged Israel not to proceed with the invasion without a plan to ensure the safety of displaced civilians. New York congressional map would make modest tweaks to swing House seats. Washington Post. A new congressional map in New York could make it easier for Democrats to flip at least one seat this year. The map was approved by the New York State Independent Redistricting Commission and still needs to be passed by the state legislature before it becomes the map used in this year's election. The new map mostly spared Republican incumbents who flipped seats in districts won by President Biden in 2020. However, the district of freshman Representative Brandon Williams, R., in central New York, was shifted into more Democratic areas, making it an even more likely pickup opportunity for Democrats. Remember the Biden bribe allegation? DOJ now says it was made up. Washington Post. An FBI informant who alleged that President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden engaged in a criminal scheme involving the exchange of money for policy decisions made the story up, according to an indictment unsealed on Thursday. The informant, Alexander Smirnov, reportedly transformed his business contacts with Burisma into bribery allegations against Joe Biden after expressing bias against the president. Smirnov claimed he had spoken with Burisma's founder, Mykola Zlochevsky, and been told about multimillion-dollar bribes made to both Bidens. However, the indictment shows that Smirnov could not have had that conversation with Zlochevsky. The U.S. conducted a cyber attack against an Iranian military ship, an official says. New York Times. The United States launched a cyber attack on an Iranian military vessel that was gathering intelligence on merchant ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden, according to a U.S. military official. The attack was part of the Biden administration's retaliation for a drone attack by Iranian-backed militias in Iraq that killed 3 American soldiers and injured dozens of others. U.S. analysts suspected that the ship, MV Bashad, was spying on nearby ships and passing information to Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. The cyber attack was intended to disrupt the ship's ability to share information with the Houthis. Anxious world leaders descend on Munich. Foreign policy. The Munich Security Conference, MSC, has begun in Germany, and a number of key international security issues are being discussed at the event. One of the major issues is the West's relationship with Russia. Policymakers are concerned that the alliance is weakening, as Western commitments to Ukraine falter. Another key topic is the upcoming U.S. presidential election, which has caused concern among U.S. allies in Europe. The possibility of a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump is unnerving to European leaders. Furthermore, the conference is addressing the question of how to handle relations with China. Europe is grappling with whether to see China as an economic partner or a geopolitical threat. Finally, the Middle East crisis is also high on the agenda. European policymakers are concerned that the US and its allies are losing global support over their stance in support of Israel's military campaign in Gaza. Palau president raises threat of pivot to Beijing if US aid is delayed further. South China Morning Post. The delay in providing economic aid to Palau by the US has led some local leaders to consider dropping diplomatic ties with Taiwan in favor of financial assistance from Beijing. According to Palau's President Surangel Whips Jnr, Palau is currently one of the 11 nations that maintain diplomatic relations with Taiwan. Whips warned that accepting China's economic offers would come at the cost of shifting alliances and sacrificing Taiwan. The delay in providing aid to Palau has made China's offers more attractive, potentially leading to a change in diplomatic ties in the region. US disrupts hacking operation led by Russian intelligence. New York Times. The FBI has announced that it has worked with other countries to disrupt a Russian hacking operation that had infiltrated over 1,000 home and small business internet routers in the US and worldwide. Russian intelligence and cybercriminals created a botnet to spy on military, security organizations and private corporations. The FBI used a court order to secretly copy and delete stolen data and malware from the hacked routers without affecting their function. FBI Director Christopher Wray said Russia continued to target critical infrastructure around the world, while China's abilities in cyber warfare have also improved, with a larger hacking program than every other major nation combined. Blindsided, the crash that rocked boardrooms and the country's wealthy investors. The Sydney Morning Herald. BHP has closed Australia's nickel industry after Indonesian supply swamped the market, causing prices to fall and thousands of jobs to be put at risk. Indonesian President Joko Widodo banned the export of key minerals like nickel in 2020 to force businesses to process the raw material within the country, leading to a flood of supply that cut prices and closed Australia's nickel sector. BHP blamed the Indonesian supply for the falling prices, as well as the London Metals Exchange for accepting Indonesian-origin nickel. Other companies in the sector, including IGO and Glencore, have also been forced to make job cuts and reassess their operations. Ex-FBI informant charged with lying about Joe Biden and son Hunter. The Sydney Morning Herald. Alexander Smirnov, a former FBI informant, has been charged with lying about President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden's involvement in business dealings with Ukrainian energy company Burisma Holdings. Special counsel David Weiss said that Smirnov had been indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of making false statements and creating false records in connection with an FBI investigation. The indictment appears to undermine Republican accusations that President Biden benefited from his son's business in Ukraine. Hunter Biden served on the board of Burisma from 2014 to 2019. The charges against Smirnov stem from his claims that Burisma executives paid Joe Biden and Hunter Biden $5 million each. Biden lawyers wrote to AG Garland objecting to aspects of Her's report. CNN. The White House has objected to aspects of Special Counsel Robert Her's report on President Joe Biden's handling of classified documents, including multiple denigrating statements about the president's memory. Biden's lawyers wrote to Attorney General Merrick Garland, arguing that the report violated the Department of Justice's (DOJ) practice and policy, and accused her of making inappropriate prosecutor criticism of uncharged conduct. The lawyers also objected to Her's characterization of Biden's practice of retaining personal diaries. The report declined to bring charges against Biden, but made numerous references to his memory and recall issues. U.S. says Russia has obtained capability for a troubling anti-satellite weapon. ABC. The White House confirmed that Russia has obtained an anti-satellite weapon, although it is not currently operational. The U.S. has expressed concern about the capability, but the White House has stated that there is no immediate threat to anyone's safety. Russia has downplayed the U.S. concerns and accused the U.S. of using the issue to gain support for aid to Ukraine. The White House said it would engage directly with Russia on the matter, and that it would continue to keep Congress and international partners informed. The rent is too high for too many young New Yorkers. Bloomberg. New York City could lose young people to other cities that experienced a construction boom during the pandemic, as high rents make it difficult for young people to find rental space in the city, according to Connorson of Bloomberg Opinion. The lack of construction in the city during the pandemic, when rental demand slumped, has created a shortage of rental space as rents have surged and vacancy rates have fallen to multi-generational lows. To address this, New York City would need to relax zoning standards and streamline permitting, but even then, a construction surge is unlikely to start right away due to rising financing costs and the increased cost of labor and materials. Consequently, New York City is likely to lose a significant number of residents, particularly younger ones, to cities that experienced a construction boom during the pandemic, Sun argues. RNC confirms Pete Hoekstra as Michigan chair after power struggle. Washington Post. The Republican National Committee has officially recognized former Congressman Pete Hoekstra as Michigan GOP chairman, ending a dispute over the position. Hoekstra is backed by former President Donald Trump, who is attending a rally in the state on Saturday. The RNC Executive Committee approved Hoekstra unanimously as an RNC member and Michigan GOP chair. Christie does not rule out voting for Biden, but he's not there yet. Hill. Former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, has not ruled out voting for Joe Biden in the upcoming presidential election. In an interview on Wednesday, Christie stated that he would not vote for Donald Trump under any circumstances, but has not yet decided whether to vote for Biden or a third-party candidate. Christie suggested that he may support a third-party candidate such as Joe Manchin, a Democratic senator from West Virginia, who is linked to the No Labels effort. Trump Legal News Brief. Fani Willis gives impassioned defense at hearing seeking to disqualify her from Trump case. Yahoo! Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis took the witness stand on Thursday to refute claims that her romantic relationship with lead prosecutor Nathan Wade was a conflict of interest in the election interference case against former President Trump and his co-defendants. Willis denied accepting gifts from Wade and said that their relationship began after his hiring and ended before she indicted Trump in August 2023. Willis further claimed that the scrutiny of her private life was unfair and warned that her removal from the case could prove fatal to the prosecution. The hearing is set to continue on Friday, with Judge Scott McAfee suggesting that Willis's removal from the case could be a possibility if a conflict of interest is established. Meanwhile, Judge Juan Merchan has scheduled the hush money trial against Trump for March 25, after denying a motion to dismiss the charges. Trump is accused of paying off adult film star Stormy Daniels and former Playboy model Karen McDougal to buy their silence on alleged affairs in the run-up to the 2016 presidential election. Trump's lawyers have objected to the trial, as it would coincide with the Republican presidential primary. The trial could take up to 6 weeks, with a verdict potentially coming as early as May. Finally, the U.S. Supreme Court has given government prosecutors until February 20 to respond to Trump's appeal to halt the U.S. Court of Appeals ruling that presidential immunity does not protect him from prosecution over his attempts to overturn his 2020 election loss to Joe Biden. The court has so far shown little urgency in the case, but has given Trump until Monday to file his appeal with the full, 11-member appeals court. Trump World considers having the former president deliver the official GOP State of the Union response. Yahoo! Aides and allies close to former President Trump have discussed the former president giving the official Republican response to President Joe Biden's March 7 State of the Union address, according to 5 people familiar with the talks. Putin calls Biden predictable in latest faint praise for a U.S. leader. Washington Post. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that Joe Biden winning the 2024 election would be better for Russia than a second term for Donald Trump. Putin called Biden a more experienced person, he is predictable, he is a politician of an old formation. However, Putin also criticized the current administration, describing the White House's position on Ukraine as extremely harmful and erroneous. Russia would also work with any leader of the U.S. that gains the trust of the American people, Putin said, adding that he would not interfere in U.S. elections. The Russian leader also criticized far-right American presenter Tucker Carlson, whose 2-hour interview with Putin last week was widely criticized for its failure to grill the Russian leader on key questions about the invasion of Ukraine and Russia's escalating political repressions. Source of Biden bribery allegations charged with false statements. The Independent. The FBI source who alleged that President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden had received bribes has been charged with fabricating the allegations. Alexander Smirnov, a confidential human source for the FBI, allegedly provided false information to federal investigators about the Bidens and their involvement with the Ukrainian energy company Burisma. Prosecutors claim that Smirnov made the false allegations during interviews in 2020, and that they were fabrications designed to pitch his services and products to Burisma. The allegations have been cited by Republican members of Congress in their impeachment investigation into President Biden. Fact check: Trump makes false and evidence-free claims at Manhattan courthouse. CNN. Former President Donald Trump has made false and unfounded claims about the hush money criminal case against him, according to a fact check by CNN. Trump claimed that the case was election interference, and that it was interfering with his ability to campaign in South Carolina. However, he voluntarily attended the court hearing and was not required to be there. He also falsely claimed that President Joe Biden's White House is running the case, despite there being no evidence to support this. Additionally, Trump falsely claimed that violent crime in New York City is at an all-time high. In reality, crime rates in both Manhattan and New York City as a whole have significantly declined since the early 1990s. The fact check highlights Trump's tendency to make false claims and spread misinformation. That's all for today's news briefing. We covered a wide range of topics, from the suspension of the acting deputy chief of the U.S. Border Patrol for alleged misconduct, to the international concern over Israel's plans for a ground offensive in Rafah. We also discussed the new congressional map in New York that could make it easier for Democrats to flip seats, and the revelation that the Biden bribe allegation was made up. In addition, we talked about the U.S. cyber attack on an Iranian military ship, the Munich Security Conference, and the major international security issues being discussed there, and the threat of Palau pivoting to Beijing if U.S. aid is delayed further. We also touched on the U.S. disruption of a Russian hacking operation, the impact of Indonesian supply on Australia's nickel industry, and the charges against a former FBI informant for lying about the Bidens. Furthermore, we covered the White House's objection to aspects of a report on President Biden's handling of classified documents, Russia's acquisition of an anti-satellite weapon, the challenges faced by young New Yorkers due to high rents, and the confirmation of Pete Hoekstra as Michigan GOP chairman. Finally, we discussed Chris Christie's consideration of voting for Biden, the defense presented by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis in the Trump case, the scheduling of the hush money trial against Trump, the U.S. Supreme Court's response to Trump's appeal, the possibility of Trump delivering the official GOP State of the Union response, Putin's comments on Biden and the U.S., and the charges against the source of the Biden bribery allegations. It's been a busy day in the news, and I hope you enjoyed our coverage. Remember, these are just the highlights, and there's always more to explore and discuss. So, what are your thoughts on today's news? Do you have any questions or opinions? Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.